Welcome back to another class of Retrograde Planet chapter of Module 3. We are going to discuss today about Mars retrograde. Mars is a warrior, is a ruler of Aries and of Scorpio. Of course, we know that also Pluto ruling Scorpio, but from the ancient astrology, what we consider to be Vedic or sidereal astrology, Mars is also the ruler of Scorpio. This is why Mars considered to be malefic. Mars is the opposite archetype of Venus. Mars is the ruler of Aries, the opposite of Libra, ruled by Venus. Venus bringing peace, me and you together. Mars is myself, and I'm going to protect and to kill if necessary, to hunt in order to achieve my goals. Mars is exalted in Capricorn in the top of the chart because Mars is competent. He doesn't care about the other person. He wants to achieve his goal. So Mars can work in a good way, depends in its chart, depends in its aspect, and it could be malefic on the way, but we consider it to be malefic because it's involved with war, with blood, with aggression, and with a lot of ego, battle, confrontation. So when Mars retrograde, we are going to investigate and to pass as a collective a period of energy, from one hand, increase. But what kind of energy increase? The fear that is ruling Scorpio as well. And also the anger. Anger and fear are rising. And why I'm saying rising? Because some would assume, no, Mercury going retrograde. We are going to maybe lose fear or lose the character of Mars. But sometimes when Mars is retrograde, it's increasing its energy on Earth as we start to behave with its shadowy needs and ambitions. On the other hand, when Mars retrograde, this is a losing sort of energy because it's masculine energy, and it's like creating more of impotency, that you want anger, but you are so drunk. It's like the drunk man that is usually very sharp-tongued, annoying, So what happened to a drunk man? He become very aggressive. Okay, this is a sentence that's saying, enters wine, secrets come out. This is known in Hebrew sentence. And usually, if a person is, after the man get drunk, or that you will discover a very sweetie soul, very friendly and very caring, because usually this is what the ego protects during the day, or that you will see the nasty demon, that if the person was very nice and controlled, fake, suddenly the anger and the violent part of it will come out. So this is what I'm saying, that the shadowy status quo sort of fall down, and we are dealing with a person that this is no much sense, like drunk. And it's very challenging timing during the 2 months almost, at least average. But usually Mars also will retrograde with us, like this year, 2022, 7 months. It's already going to the next year. But Mars can retrograde long months. And it's going to purge a lot of the things that weren't identified. I recommend you to read more about the significant and different perspective of other astrologers about Mars retrograde. I want to illustrate in this class how those periods of Mars retrograde to impact the markets. We continue to see and to investigate it through the chart of Bitcoin. And I would invite you to check on other charts as well. We are taking the dates directly from AstroGold. We don't need to search for articles and where it happened that someone will tell us. Everything is in our calculator directly. And let's start doing together. And we are going to AstroGold. We are going to search. We are going to retrograde and direct bar. We are choosing Mars. And here we are right now, October 2022. Mars will retrograde Mars retrograde in 2020, in September 9th, 2020, until November 30th, 2020. It was in retrograde 6 months, 7 months. Okay? What happened back then in the market? Let's go to the chart. 2020. We are in a weekly chart. I took it before August 30th. Here is from literally September 9th, but I took it a bit more, even it can be from here. Okay, this is from Mercury retrograde. I'm deleting it now. Well, maybe I remain it because it's a combination of two retrograde changes period on the same time. And remember, we're seeing the weekly chart. And this is the period of Mars in red. Red is the color of Mars, the red planet, and the blood that is ruling, and the passion. And from September, we took August until November, until the end of the year, I took it to here. This is all the period of Mars retrograde. What happened back then? Mars retrograde took the market down in 17 almost percent, and then went up in almost 50% during the time of Mars retrograde. If you are interested to read what happened in the world this time, also do so, because I like a lot to include the economy with geopolitics. And right now in this class, I'm focusing on the market. And we may remember what happened between August lockdowns around the world to November. Some relief of the lockdowns was in the first lockdown of summer 2020. And then other things enter to the equation. And everybody are investing and find a way of winning with Mars. But let's see more. We are going to have Mars retrograde in October. Let's do it here. In October 30th, but of course I can start it before, even 2 weeks before, until January 2023, Mars retrograde. Now remember, is retrograde, it's going direct, but then it will take it another 2 months to cover all the place that it's retrograde, to arrive to the same degree before starting the retrograde. Because it's going to start it in 25 degrees of Gemini in October 2022, and will retrograde until 8 degrees of Gemini. This is long time to do, long path to do. From, let's call it, okay, the end of October to the middle of January. Then it will take 2 more months to end Gemini, to go back to this degree of the 25 degrees. Okay, so I'm adding here, even easily I adding here 3 weeks more. This is usually the section, the size of Mars retrograde. It also should be here longer. But because it's come already with Mercury retrograde inside this, as we see here, okay, I will not touch. But this is usually should be the consideration of the period that we should worry of. And let's see another period of Mars retrograde that happened June 4th to August, the end of August 2018. What we are seeing here by the dynamic, market went 30% down and then went 30% up. Could we get any insight to what's happening after Mars retrograde? By observing here, after this, something arrived and we got a fall. Inside of the cube, nothing dramatic, but it was very much sharp. Any sharp dynamic, as Mars is usually telling us. Here is another sort of knife, right? Let's look another period. Here is 2016 Bitcoin. Went from $400 to $800, 50%. And look what dynamic we received when Mars was retrograde. We could also see when Mars retrograde in 2016 in the sign of Sagittarius from 8 degrees until move direct in Scorpio in 23 degrees. So Mars in retrograde in Sagittarius started like this, like going a bit flat. Once it's continued the retrograde in Scorpio, that is ruling Scorpio, because Mars is also the ruling of Scorpio, it knew how to behave and behaved very sharply high. What happened in 2018? Mars started the retrograde from Aquarius and ended in Capricorn. So Mars started in Aquarius, went down, and then in Capricorn, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, went up. The planet knew how to behave and to use its energy correctly to push things forward. But indeed, after this, we got something else, but it may be related to other aspects that were happening on the same time. And let's look on 2014, because I didn't mention. Mars is retrograde every 2 years. This is a cycle of Mars. Every 2 years, we are going to get Mars retrograde, and it will retrograde for a few months. And we definitely can take 1 month before and 1 month after. So we saw already examples that is retrograding even 6 months every 2 years. And of course, we cannot expect that 6 months is not Mercury retrograde, it's just 3 weeks. That we cannot expect that during this period that it will be only down or only up. But this is a theme that is emphasizing during this time that I still want us to contemplate about. So 2 years after, in 2014, we are seeing here February until May. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I easily would enter this to the equation of Mars retrograde. This is the size of the classical size of Mars retrograde. And what we got here, pretty depression of 50-60% down. And let's see, and this was very cheap price of Bitcoin, 700 fell to 300 something. So what happened back then in 2014? Mars started to retrograde in March. I took already February, month before, okay? Because it was in Libra. Mars is falling in Libra. Mars doesn't like to be in Libra. He's determined in Libra. Because it's the opposite placement of its home. And it's continue to, it was all in Libra. So Mars acted horribly during this time. Right? Now it makes sense why we need to remember what we studied in Module 2. Determinant and exaltation. And how planets to behave in such places. And check your life and check what happened in the war during this time in 2014. Many divorces should happen during this time. A lot of non-fair relationships should be exposed. But look, here when Mars was in Capricorn, the other side of the retrograde, it just needed to be in the right sign. So we didn't feel very much the retrograde to illustrate specifically one move here, but we saw that it's a significant move. Specifically that here it was exalted, here it was determined. And exactly 2 years difference. What after this we measure? Nothing to compare. Right? Because what happened in 2018? In 2018, Mars started to retrograde in Aquarius and went to Capricorn. So, sorry, what I said here? It was in Scorpio. Here it was in its home sign. In its home sign, in Scorpio, it went up. Here, it was in Capricorn part of the time. Here, it started to retrograde in here in 2016, it started to retrograde in Sagittarius and continue to Scorpio, its home sign. And that's what happened when it's entered to its home sign, went up. Here, it started in not ideal placement of Aquarius, retrograde back to Capricorn where it's competent and taking power, but for sure it was more things here to contemplate on. We're going to see next classes here. And things maintain relatively stable after the drop that we saw here from 20K to 6,000. Okay, so 2 years passed. 2 years passed from 2018 to 2020, and here we got something similar that we got here. What happened in 2020? Again, 2020, Mars started to retrograde in Aries, in its home sign. Started to retrograde in its home sign and remained in its home sign all the time for 6 months. So Mars behaved and found a way up to use the power of taking things to its interest. Let's go to the future. 2 years from 2020 to 2022 to the end, Mars will retrograde entirely in Gemini. Gemini ruled by Mercury. And what would you expect to happen? We will discover. You could assume. I will not add much here because those are more aspects that are combined, and we saw already in the last class about Venus retrograde in the near, not exactly in this time, but 6 months after. But Mars here may correct us probably, because Mars' nature is to win. Mars wants to incite our willingness to achieve our goals. And if our goals is to go higher and to increase price, despite of whatever will happen in this cube, it doesn't matter if it will fall 30%, it will find a way to move higher. And we will find despite of the depression, despite of the sadness, we usually will find a way to fight it back. Here it was exceptional in 2018 because it's retrograde to Capricorn, and after Capricorn went back to Aquarius. That is very unstable, but was stable. This is exceptional. We don't need to have always answers, my friends. I'm sometimes trying to challenge myself too much, like, let's give the answer. Here is exceptional. Mars didn't do what we may expect. It gave here percentage in the middle. 50%. It gave 50%. It gave win. But if we will explore what else happened during this time, we may gain more insights in what happened aspects-wise, that Mars didn't succeed to go all the way up. But finally, after all what happened and crashed here another 50% to 300, and we saw it in Venus, right? We saw already Venus retrograde. What happened in 2018? Let's put here weekly, automatic. In 2018, in 2018, it was 17. No. Here we didn't have anything. Here you have a chance to see how I'm drawing the thing. We are looking on June and August 2018. Only this. From June, only 2 months. 2 months retrograde from June to August. And I was trying to understand what happened here in 2018. Here is it. Here is it. Oh, that's what I was looking for. Here, that's what happened. Here, Mars finished the retrograde, and look what came after. Venus retrograde. Right? And that what didn't let. It's like the wife actually won the court and didn't let Mars, the man, to win in this plan, even the retrograde in Capricorn, and, find the ways. Then Venus came and cleared the house. Fascinating dialogue. I'm going to show you toward the end of this chapter how more planets combined, marking in different colors on the chart, It will be fascinating to investigate. And of course, you will need to do this to dedicate the time on any chart that will interest you to understand dynamic and also to guess the future. It's still giving us the tools and the techniques to handle with my method, literally how I'm drawing the line. But we all need to combine so many things. You will find also the way to combine it with more things, and the method should grow and improve all the time. Right? So I think that with this we can close this class about Mars. Very interesting to look at this. Even now I'm realizing things that a moment before I didn't, and this is the beauty of learning and the humbleness of being an internal student. So in the next class, even I didn't think to include Jupiter retrograde. I finally decided yes to include it. It's going to cover other perspective that Jupiter is a benefic planet, and what is happening, just to observe it on the background and to decide if it's worth to check it or not, on top of the other quick moving planet, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And of course, you could check also what happened when Saturn retrograde and when Neptune retrograde. You have all those things accessible in AstroGold. And we are learning to observe. See you in the next class about Jupiter retrograde. Bye.